I drink iced tea in these meetings, and I wonder why at the end of the meeting I'm still wide awake.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Susan. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So I understand you just closed on that property?
We did, and we're actually at a conference right now up in Healdsburg, and the woman that sold us the property showed up and heard our opening session for the first responders. It was incredible.
Wonderful. My niece, I think, was your broker on that.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Elisa?
Yes.
I don't know if she's still my niece because she and my nephew broke up, but yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, of course. The whole family's in on this.
That 101 corridor between Marin and Sonoma is pretty small.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like I have 7 o'clock, so we will go ahead and start our meeting. I'd like to welcome everybody to the joint meeting of the Cotati City Council and the successor agency to the former Cotati Community Redevelopment Agency for Tuesday, May 25th, 2021. If we could have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Harvey.
Here.
Councilmember Sparks.
Here.
Councilmember Ford.
Here.
Vice Mayor Landman.
Here.
Mayor Moore.
Here. Thank you. And if you would join me for a moment in a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. And we could have an approval of the minutes. Oh, before we do that, Mr. Obid, would you kindly introduce our staff that we have here tonight?
Sure, Mayor, and members of the council and the public. So we have our police chief, Michael Parrish. We have our community development director, Noah Hausch. We have our administrative services director, Angela Corder. We have our director of public works and city engineer, Craig Scott. We have our city attorney, John Walker, and of course, we have Lauren Burgess, our city clerk, and myself, the city manager.
Thank you. I have you do that so that I don't mess up their titles on there. So, thank you. And now we'll go on to approval of the minutes and notice of the waiving of reading of all resolutions and ordinances introduced and or adopted under this agenda. City Council regular meeting May 11th, 2021, and City Council special meeting May 18th, 2021.
Move to approve. This is Councilmember Harvey.
I'll second this, Councilmember Ford.
Thank you.
Include
We have,
both sets.
thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can we please have a roll call, Ms. Burgess?
Councilmember Harvey.
Yes.
Councilmember Sparks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Landman.
Yes.
Mayor Moore.
Yes, thank you very much. And now we will move on to announcements, so you'll bear with me on this. Meeting orientation for new attendees and viewers. In conformance with the Brown Act and adopted City Council rules, the meeting agenda includes items labeled as action items, where the City Council will consider the item and citizens are afforded the opportunity to provide comments relevant to the item being discussed. The meeting agenda also includes a citizens business item, and citizens are afforded the opportunity to provide comments relevant to the item being discussed. The meeting agenda also includes a citizens business item, which is the designated place on the agenda where citizens have the right to say whatever they wish. The City Council may or may not choose to respond to comments as the government code allows. However, if the City Council declines to respond, it should not be perceived as giving credence to or agreeing with any statements that the City Council or its members believe are incorrect, misinformed, or purposefully biased. Measure S supports police services, a variety of recreation programs for all ages, and the maintenance of our streets, parks, and public buildings. See details on the web at cotaticity.org. Citizens interested in receiving City of Cotati community alerts via text or email are encouraged to sign up at nixle.com or by texting your zip code 94931 to 888-777. Like always, we'd love to hear from you, so please feel free to contact the city at 707-792-4600 or info@cotaticity.org. If you have a non-emergency issue after normal business hours, you can contact us at 707-792-4611. And of course, if you have an emergency, please contact 911. Continue to look for updates on the city's website and social media channels available on Facebook, Instagram, Nixle, and Nextdoor. And right now we're going to move on to proclamations. Right now we're going to recognize the City of Cotati proclaiming the month of June as Pride Month. So whereas Cotati's LGBTQ+, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual, queer community is comprised of individuals, families, and allies who are an integral part of the fabric of our city and who demonstrate pride in and commitment to our city throughout the year by virtue of their contributions to its economy, culture, and quality of life. And whereas the LGBTQ+ community has much to celebrate in terms of business and professional achievements, artistic expression, political involvement, community activities, and life-affirming family relationships, and is a vital part of the Sonoma County culture. And whereas the City of Cotati and the LGBTQ+ community of Sonoma County continue to support and encourage diversity in the workplace and throughout the community. And whereas the city is proud of its skilled, talented, and dedicated employees, including the LGBTQ+ community, who work tirelessly to provide services to the people of Cotati. And whereas the City of Cotati celebrates Pride Month with the LGBTQ+ community and will fly the Pride flag at City Hall for the month of June. Now therefore, be it proclaimed on the 25th of May, 2021, the City Council of the City of Cotati hereby celebrates the month of June 2021 as Pride Month. And I don't know if there are any comments that the council would like to make, or if we have anybody in attendance that would like to make a comment on that. I would open it up at this time.
Mayor Moore, I'm going to check in with our call-in listener with the
Thank
last digits of 4245. Is this Chris Cranmora?
Looks like 4245 is muted.
We may need to come back to that number. Marjorie Crump-Shears, go ahead.
Oh, good. Now I think I'm unmuted. All I want to say is brava, bravo. I will be glad to see that flag flying during June. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we'll check in with our call-in listener, 4245. Go ahead.
Well, we can come back to that in citizens' business if they are able to rectify the, oh, there we go, never mind, go ahead.
This is Erin Armstrong, and I'm here for the chamber. I don't know why I was selected for this topic of conversation, but I'm very, very proud that Cotati is recognizing this, and I support it 100%.
Thank you, Aaron. I think we thought that was somebody else online, but thank you for that
I know,
acknowledgement.
yeah, you were saying my number, but yeah. All right, I'm here.
Mayor Moore, that will end public comment.
Thank you very much. So now we will go on to our presentations. Our first presentation is with Susan Farron, who is the founder and organizer of the First Responders Resiliency Network. And there was a little bit of conversation at the beginning, prior to the meeting. Susan and her organization have purchased what used to be the Larson Pitch and Putt property, and will be putting in a wonderful program out there. So I think that's going to be a wonderful asset to the surrounding community and to Cotati as well. So, Susan, if you are ready to go, by all means, go ahead.
I am, and I just want to check real quickly here how much time I have, and I guess I can just ask someone to move the slides forward as we go through this, since it's you have that presentation. Does that work okay?
That works fine. And how much time do you think you need?
Oh, 10 minutes? Is that enough, or is that too much?
No, that's more than enough. That's fine.
Okay, okay. I'll make this as succinct as I can. I just wanted to introduce the City Council. First of all, thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak about our organization. I apologize in my casual attire here. I'm actually with one of our primary instructors. I'm going to just slide that over. This is Highway Patrol, retired Highway Patrol Commander Kathy Wayne is with me here. We're up currently at the Bishop's Ranch, which is where we've been paying to host conferences for first responders for the last 3 years. We have trained I think we're just at a number of about 5,000 first responders in 3 years. And I want to tell you just a little bit about the organization, the inception of it, and what we hope to be doing, or what we are going to be doing in Cotati now that we've actually been able to acquire the property. So if you'll indulge me just for a minute here, and if I can see what the first slide is. I don't actually have that access to that present. Perfect, okay, there I am. So my background is I'm a Sonoma County native. I was raised here in the town of Sonoma and then lived in Monarch Park for 23 years as I was working as a paramedic. And yeah, you can stop right here, that's perfect. I was working as a paramedic oftentimes on the streets. I started my career in Santa Rosa, and then I went to Oakland, where I spent the first 5 years of my career. Transitioned into San Francisco. I had met and married my husband. We moved back into Sonoma County, where I said we lived for 23 years, had our 5 children. And I would say that I could honestly tell you that 7 years ago, I would have said that I'd had the career of a lifetime. I had been an EMT and a paramedic. I had been a clinical manager, so I worked for many of the fire departments. I worked with Petaluma Fire, Novato Fire, Sonoma Fire. I also worked with Sonoma Life Support in Santa Rosa, and I was oftentimes the clinical manager, so I would provide medical oversight for the paramedics who were working in the industry of fire and private ambulance. And I knew what we struggled with in the industry because I had worked in the industry my whole life. I knew that we had a huge problem with divorce and adultery. It would turn out when I started my research that our divorce rate is about 20 to 30% higher than the national average. I was aware that we had issues around addiction and depression and isolation, and I also knew that there was an issue around suicide with first responders because 4 of my own partners have taken their lives over 25 years. But I didn't recognize how deep the problem was or how it was impacting us physically until I got sick. So here's the short version of this story. I unfortunately ended up having to go through a divorce with my first responder spouse because somebody else had got involved in the equation of our marriage, and that was a very traumatic experience for me. That would start taking place in 2014, and before our divorce was final in 2016, 2 weeks before our divorce was final, I would discover that I had kidney cancer. So I began to urinate blood and was taken into Kaiser, where they discovered initially a kidney tumor that they were going to have to remove, and then after doing some scans, etc. on me, initially they thought I had a terminal diagnosis. They thought it was in my liver as well. So For a couple of days there, I was given about a 12-month life expectancy. They thought that it had started in probably my colon or in my chest. And after they did a lot of testing on me, and then I also went through major surgery, they discovered that I did not have cancer in my liver. I had actually a birthmark, kind of a hemangioma, like a port wine stain, that showed up as a mass in a scan, which turned out to be a birthmark. Just unbelievable. I call that my stay of execution. So when I was in the hospital, one of the doctors came in about 3 days post-surgery and just made this simple comment. He said, "We see a lot of this in first responders." And I said, "You see a lot of what?" And he said, "Organ cancer." Now listen, as I mentioned, I was aware of what we struggled with on the job. I knew that we had these issues around substance abuse and depression, stuff that nobody talked about, right? That was a story that we all knew inside, but we weren't talking about that, and it certainly wasn't being disclosed in the public. But I had never heard anything about organ cancer in first responders. So when I got out of the hospital, I started researching organ cancer. And the next thing I found out was a link to both strokes and heart attacks in first responders. And I would find information like research that indicated that first responders had a life expectancy of 15 years less than civilians. We had a 40% greater chance of taking our own lives and dying in the line of duty. Our divorce rate was 20 to 30% higher than the national average. We had huge issues uncharted on substance abuse and all kinds of issues around impulsive and aggressive behavior. And I knew that there was some of this was going on, but what I didn't understand was why we had never been able to deal with it. Everything that has been afforded us in our industry, and I've been in this industry my entire life, is reactive. See, post-traumatic stress was something that Vietnam vets had. It wasn't something that first responders had. Nobody discussed it in this venue. And everything that we had been offered had been after we were sick. So after we began to exhibit signs of post-traumatic stress, whether that was irrational behavior, whether we were depressed, whether we were having trouble arriving up at work, whether we were going through our third divorce, whatever it was that was going on, we were offered help after we began to exhibit these symptoms. And like I said, unfortunately, not uncommonly, the solution to the pain, the psychological pain of what we see, hear, and smell is sometimes suicide. And so I knew that this stuff was happening in relationship to what we were doing because we were having a response to it by providing the employee assistance program. We had something called debriefings that we did, and we also had something called peer counseling. So I want to be real clear about this. When we were coming up with these solutions, these reactionary solutions to the problem of post-traumatic stress in first responders, there was no consideration for the impact that talking about our calls, whether to each other or to our therapist, were actually having on us. So every time we relive a call or talk about an event, it traumatizes us psychologically and emotionally as well as physically. So what I thought about was, if we can come up with a reactionary program to a problem, why can't we come up with a solution to stopping the problem from coming up in the first place? And so after I had done the research on this program for more than a year and struggling with my own critical depression after my surgery and my divorce and discovering that they had paralyzed my surgery, my belly in the surgery, I actually created a proactive approach to helping first responders stay alive, avoiding the symptoms of post-traumatic stress at all. And after I did that, I went to Sonoma Fire. I gave my first presentation where I got this incredible testimony from the firefighters about, oh my gosh, holy crap, which is a nice way of putting it that they put it. What are you going to do about this? What can be done about this? And I realized we didn't have time for this to go into the academies and be changed in curriculum because people were still dying every day from what we were seeing, hearing, and smelling. And so I took a leap of faith, and in 2017, 3 weeks before the Tubbs fire, I sold my house in the East section for the seed money to start this nonprofit. In June of 2018, I hosted our first conference out at Westerbeck Ranch in Sonoma. And after that first conference of 40 people, I was asked to host another one. I held that in November, and then we were asked to do a follow-up one the following February. And then I was asked to come and speak to CAL FIRE. And in the last 2.5 years, as I mentioned, we've trained nearly 5,000 first responders. We've traveled all over the country. We've hired retired police officers, firefighters. I'm the retired EMS person. We have doctors, nurses, therapists, and dispatchers working with us. We're working with Loma Loma Linda University doing our empirical data, the research on the work that we do to show that what we're doing is working. We work with UCLA for our sleep deprivation research. And all of that is telling you about the fact that this has taken hold. I hate to say the phrase taken fire, caught fire. This has taken hold. And the first responders across the nation are beginning to call us to come out and do presentations. We have 22 more presentations scheduled before the end of this year. We've just trained all of the Santa Rosa Police Department, 246 of their personnel, and have signed a 3-year contract with CAL FIRE to train 13,000 of their personnel in the next 3 years. See, my dream was not to travel across the country teaching first responders how to stay alive, how to help their families, which we also do. We train their families. That wasn't ever really my intention, but I had to do something to get the word out about our work. What I wanted to do was build a resiliency center. I wanted a place where first responders could go at the time that they needed the help, not to call after they were sick or injured and have to go see a therapist who doesn't understand what they do maybe 2 or 3 weeks away from their event. I wanted to build a center where they would have access to the work that we teach them. These are holistic modalities. We teach mindfulness, breathing, we do massage and meditation, we do yoga, we do qigong, we do all sorts of approaches that allow their nervous systems to heal and recover so they can stay on their jobs, but also get through their careers and retire successfully. So my intention all along was to have a place that first responders could go immediately, whether they were struggling after a fatal event, after a horrifying experience of fighting fire for 11 days, or struggling in their marriages. They'd have a place to go where they could get the help that they needed immediately. So all along, this has been my dream. And through an act, a miraculous act is all I can say, is I went out quite by accident and saw that property on West Sierra Avenue, and the owners knew of our organization and assisted us through a generous donation and some help launching a capital campaign to acquire that property. And our intention is to provide a resiliency center, to build a resiliency center for first responders where they have access every day to the modalities that we teach. There will be workers' comp assistance, and this is just a place where they can go and get the healing and the help that they need in a timely fashion. Our hope is that one day we'll be able to host our conferences there at that center, and that would just require us to either do temporary housing. We never have more than 40 people on a site at any given time, and or transfer them off the property to stay in a local hotel if we need to do that. So we have to go through the permit process and all of that. But I got a chance to speak to the mayor. Thank you, Mayor, for giving me that time. And he gave me the opportunity to introduce the work that we do and to share our vision to be able to make Sonoma County the first home of the First Responder Resiliency Center. And then we're going to try to get these centers built across the nation, get the first responders the help that they need and the support that they need so that they can keep themselves psychologically, physically, and emotionally well, and so we can take care of those who are saving us and saving our lives. I didn't even go through my slides. You can slide the next PowerPoint there, see what my next picture was. I don't even know what that slide was. Why we exist is because post-traumatic stress is a real issue and we're dying. Next slide would show the only thing ever offered to us has been reactive after we were sick or injured. You can go ahead. We can't talk first responders into better behavior. I want to talk very briefly and then I'll close up for this conversation. You can't give police officers more information about sensitivity training and send social workers out with them. That won't change the behavior. Impulsive and aggressive behavior is coming down to nervous system behavior. These people are in a constant state of fight or flight. They don't even know how to shut it off. No one's ever taught them. We'll spend $50,000 onboarding a new officer into any department to protect their bodies and to give them equipment to run their jobs, but we won't spend a dime training them on the most important piece of equipment they'll ever have in their lives, their brains and their spinal cords, their nervous systems. That's what we do. We give them the tools to stay calm and be compassionate, because when we're compassionate and calm as first responders responding to the community, we begin to impart that same behavior into our community, so we begin to heal the community by healing those who are helping them. The next slide. These are some of our instructors. Commander Wayne is the one you're seeing there over the floor from the right. Dr. McCullough, former chief of the emergency room at Memorial, ex-military folks, family members, naturopath physicians, lots of us out here. And the next slide. This is where we are right now in Bishop's Ranch. We're training, like I said, another 40 people. We've been able to do many of our trainings on webinar, but we've been released to do some in-person training. So this is where we are right now. One more. This is just some of the pictures of the people that we've helped. Like I said, it's been 5,000 people across the nation that we've helped so far, and that's just in 3 years. Okay, and one more, I think. Oh, those are some milestones. We got the Jefferson Award this year for outstanding service to a community, and we've been able to be on a PBS special about sleep deprivation. We trained folks on that. We've written a book called Responder Resiliency to help first responders stay well. And one more slide. This is the center that we want to develop and some of the things that we want folks to be able to access. We're also going to provide cancer support. As a cancer survivor and many of the first responders struggling with cancer, we'd like to also provide some cancer support at this center. And we're going to make this beautiful. It's going to look like it's part of our community. It's not going to be an albatross out in the middle of the field. We're going to make this really connect with nature. And I think we've got another slide. That's just a drawing that I had done of what I wanted that center to look like and how we would divide up the modalities for teaching. And one more. This is the property that we've just purchased. You all may remember this as the Washoe Golf Course. And one more slide. That's part of what the buildings have as a 2,400 square foot clubhouse there that we hope to be able to use as a classroom. In the interim, we'll try to use it as an office, but we're hoping to get permitted to use it as a classroom and just teach some classes. We do 2- and 3-day classes. Okay, I think there's probably another one. This is probably the most important thing that I want to say. If you want to thank the first responders for all they've done, thank them by helping us save their lives. The only thing that really transforms the lives of the first responders is giving them tools they need to keep their nervous systems and their hearts and their minds balanced. And we do that because we're all first responders with a lifetime of experience training other first responders with research and science behind us. So we hope to make this, like I said, Cotati will be the home of the first responder resiliency center in the world. And we will use this beautiful place as a place of recovery and resiliency for the people who deserve it most. So thank you so much for giving me a chance to tell you that story in a very prompt way. If anyone has any questions, I'd be delighted to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Susan. I think that's critical work, and I think that's really important. So I think we'd be proud to have you in the community. I don't know if we have any questions from the council at this point. Ben?
Not a question. I just want to say I'm excited to have you coming. I wish you were in town. You're close, so happy to have you in the community.
Thank you. Well, I'll be moving on to the property, so I'll be there.
Perfect. Vice Mayor Lemon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'll second that welcome, Susan. And I wonder if you could briefly just give us an update. I was interested when you were talking about modern medical recognition of the effects of sleep deprivation. Spent 30 years as a fireman, remember that, and as a paramedic. We were the first generation that actually kind of did that full time. And I know that some of us had a real hard time. I certainly did. Others did better. I always look back certainly with some regret with that too. It was difficult, but I'm curious, what is the current medical thinking in that? I mean, it goes with the job. So how do you counsel? How do you help? And what are the impacts we find long-term now that we have a generation past who we can study this?
Wow, that's a great question. I haven't been asked that before, and I'm delighted to answer that question. So we do know that long-term consequences of sleep deprivation increase the chances of stroke and dementia. So we're intimately aware of issues around the long-term consequences of sleep deprivation. We also know that if you get less than 6 hours of sleep on an average, you have a 40% greater chance of having a stroke. So it's not uncommon in young responders to have those kinds of sleep deprivation related injuries. But more importantly, that sleep deprivation also makes it difficult for them to do their jobs and to be objective while they're on duty. So what we do is we give them tools to utilize when they're off duty, creating what we call the 4 pillars of sleep. We've done this through research with Matt Walker and, as I mentioned, UCLA. We give them actual tools and techniques that they can use off duty. But more importantly, and I don't want to say maybe just say as importantly, one of the things that we do is we give them techniques to utilize while they're on duty to calm their nervous systems down so that they can sleep without embedding memories of trauma after a difficult call. So they're more likely to sleep while they're on duty and then get better sleep when they're off duty. So the research shows this is one of the most critical things that we teach is how to avoid sleep deprivation off duty and how to enhance your brain while you're on duty. So part of that is done through meditation is a big part of what we do, is calming that nervous system and trying to get that brain out of what they call a high beta brainwave state and down into a theta state. And that actually is really healing for the brain. That's a state the brain gets into when you're asleep. So we teach them how to do that. So if they're working for 24, 48, 72 hours, we can give them some techniques to allow the brain to heal and continue to have some prefrontal cortex involvement, so better decision making. So it's a lot more complicated than that, but that's my short answer to your question. Thank you for asking that.
Well, and thank you for sharing that. Good to hear. I think that works for all first responders. It isn't just EMS and fire. Certainly, law enforcement works shifts, and that's just as problematic when you're changing shifts and do shift work. I remember that too. So thank you for that, and welcome again to Cotati.
Thank you. Thank you. So delighted to be here.
Councilmember Harvey.
Yes, thank you, Susan, for the presentation. I'm just really very excited about the work that you're doing. I think it's definitely important work, and I'm glad that it worked out for you. I happen to know one of the folks on your team, Eric Strong. I've known him for many, many, many years. So I really wish you the best of luck and that you have many, many senders to come.
Thank you. Eric is our Director of Training and Logistics. He came in as a primary instructor and has pretty much taken over the company, which makes it possible for me to be here now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I am not seeing any.
Mayor, it's the chief. I'd like to share something, if I may.
You didn't raise your hand, Chief Parrish. Absolutely.
Well, it's a small world because at the beginning, Susan introduced Kathy Wayne, and she probably doesn't remember me. It would be, she don't know me as Chief Parrish, but maybe Merced County Sheriff's Department, Mike Parrish. We are classmates of the FBI Academy Session 220 in Quantico, Virginia in 2005.
Oh my God. Wow. What are the chances? Wow.
So she's known for her karaoke skills. So small world. So our police department, we have 3 personnel that are trained in critical incident debriefing. They were trained by the First Responder Support Network. So we do engage in debriefing. We welcome you as a neighbor. And again, I don't know, I think I saw Kathy probably 16 years ago, but good to see you.
Yeah, wonderful. And Chief, if you'd ever be interested in having a conversation to show how what we do combines so beautifully to the debriefings, because it softens the road for them to be able to receive the information versus just give it to them after they're traumatized and then try to help them build off of that. It can be difficult. So please know that we're here at your service anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Susan. In light of the information and the community that is involved, I will open it up for the public if they have any comments that they would like to make at this point.
Thank you, Mayor Moore. For our attendees tonight, please use the raise hand icon on your desktop or smart device. And if you're a call-in listener, dial *9. And that will end public comment.
Thank you very much. Susan, thank you so much for that presentation. Great success moving forward, and I think you're going to be a wonderful addition to the community.
Thank you. Thank you all for your time.
You're welcome. Okay, now we will move on to approval of the final agenda. Any changes to that, Mr. Obid?
Thank you, Mayor. No proposed changes.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll move on to citizens' business. Any member of the public wishing to speak to the council on any item listed on the consent calendar or any matter not listed on the agenda that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the council is not allowed to consider issues or take action on any item not listed on the agenda during this period. Pursuant to City Council Policy 2017-02, comments of any member of the public are normally restricted to 3 minutes in length per person for matters not on the agenda, and a total of 3 minutes per person in length for any matter and all items on the consent calendar. The mayor may extend the time limit for reasonable time where a disability accommodation has been requested.
Thank you, Mayor Moore. And to our attendees, once again, use the raise hand icon or dial *9. I'm going to check in with Vincenzo Carrazza.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you, City Clerk. Good evening, Mayor, Council, fellow Americans. My name is Vincenzo Carrazza, a veteran from the local Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 3237, and I am here to again invite you to our upcoming VFW's Memorial Day event. This is an opportunity to learn about military culture. We will gather outside in front of the flagpole at the Veterans Memorial Building at 8505 Park Avenue in Cotati at 0700, that's 7 o'clock in the morning, for a PT formation, which is socially distanced between 6 to 10 feet apart with mask on. We will salute the flag as it is slowly being lowered to half staff. Taps, which is a traditional bugle song during funerals, will be played and names of the fallen will be read. Then we will somberly disperse. What better way to start the upcoming Memorial Day than by joining the Veterans of Foreign Wars, Post 3237, as we commemorate ultimate sacrifices of our service members for this great nation. It's a quick outdoor ceremony where your risk of catching COVID is low, but the risk of catching patriotism and love of your country very high. Can you handle it? Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Carrazza.
That will end public comment.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to our consent calendar. Do we have any items that are interested in being pulled on this consent calendar by the council?
Mayor Moore, if I may interject, we have a late
You
hand
certainly.
for citizens' business and public comment.
Oh, okay. We will go back to citizens' business. Thank you, Ms. Burgess.
Marjorie Crumpshares, go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good, good, good. First, let me just say very quickly that the PTSD program that is coming to our area sounds absolutely wonderful. And I'm really glad that we're going to be part of that here, as well as others in the county, of course. Today is the 1-year remembrance of George Floyd's killing. Since that time, there has been a needed and necessary focus on what is happening in our country with regard to police activities and Black and brown citizens. We have a long way to go, but there are some good things that are happening. One of the reasons why CORE, Cotati Organized Against Racism, was started was to counteract the racist activities of far too many police departments in this country. As part of our work, we have looked at what's happening in Roanoke Park and Cotati. We chose to focus on Cotati because most of us live here. We want our community to be as open and transparent and inclusive as possible. And we know that our city council and to some extent our police department support that. When I look at our Friday community newspaper and see the activities of the Roanoke Park Police Department and the Cotati Police Department, I look at our police department and think, don't we do more than pick up people for traffic stops and warrants? That seems to be pretty much what's there. And then I ask myself the question, how many people do we have in our police department? Why can't we be a part of looking at what's going on there? We know that there are issues from time to time. We want to be more involved, and we want our community to be more involved. On this anniversary of George Floyd's killing, I can't think of anything better to say. Transparency, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Moore, that will end public comment.
Okay, are we sure this time?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we will move on to our consent calendar. Don't know if there's any questions or concerns on that.
Mr. Mayor, if nobody wants to pull anything, I'd be happy to move the consent calendar. This is Vice Mayor.
Thank you.
It's Councilmember Ford. I'm happy to second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Burgess, if you could do a roll call, please.
Councilmember Harvey.
Yes.
Councilmember Sparks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Landman.
Yes.
Mayor Moore.
Yes, thank you very much. Let the record show that as a 5-0 vote on the consent calendar. Now we will move on to direction of future agenda items. Any agenda items that the council would like to see at this point?
Could I ask a question?
Sure. I don't see a hand, but certainly.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's
You want me to
okay.
put my hand back up? How's that?
Better.
I was wondering when we were going to have the some of the zero waste Sonoma ordinance come before us again. And I would like to see those coming soon. I know Damien and company have been working on those, so hopefully we will get those soon.
Mayor, I can just respond directly. So we're targeting July for that because we want enough time to, particularly with the single-use containers, provide businesses enough time to order stock or change their ordering, the type of stock that they order with enough time to use any existing stock that they have. So July is what we're targeting for that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, let's move on to our regular agenda. And the first item on that is the Cotati logo program. Mr. Rubin, are you doing that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And before I start, I also wanted to let everybody know that I have Dennis from Flannel here as well, who can use the artistic side of this discussion. I certainly am not. So it's a little bit of background, first of all. This is what we're talking about is the logo. And the logo would be used for public informational or promotional purposes by the city or our partners. So this doesn't replace the city seal, which is a separate thing, but we are starting to work on that as well. It's intended to be complementary to the wayfinding and gateway signage efforts that we have also spent a significant amount of time on. And as I mentioned at the outset, we've been working with Flannel on the logo. And this can be used in a variety of different ways depending on the context. Dennis, I'll bring you in at this point and you can maybe describe the design intent a bit.
Sure, absolutely. Can you hear me okay, Damien?
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, thank you very much. So, to give you a little background on the project. So, my business that I'm the owner and creative director of is called Flannel, and we're a Cotati-based creative agency. I've been running my business in Cotati for the past 18 years. And for the past 11 years, we've been in our downtown location, which is right between Moxie's Salon and Spanky's. And so when Damien and the city approached us to develop the new logo for the city, we were just absolutely thrilled and honored to be a part of it, because this city means a lot to me. We've been, like I said, we've been in the city for 18 years, and I raised both my boys here. We live in the city, and it was a really special project to be a part of. So, to get to the logo in particular, one of the first things that we kind of figured out early on was that we were going to approach this from the perspective of having, ultimately creating both a logo and a seal. The idea being that the seal would be something that was more timeless, because right now, basically, the logo that Cotati's using is used for like many different purposes, whether it's marketing, communications with the public, official documents, things like that. And we thought that, you know, looking at what the intent of the logo would be, it made sense to kind of create, you know, two there. One that could be more official city business, and that, like I said, could be timeless, something that wasn't as trendy and kind of had a different tone. And then the logo, which is really supposed to be more of kind of represent the heart and soul of the town. It can do so in a way that's you know, utilizes some trends and some fun colors and fonts, and you know, something that right now at this point in time represents Cotati and all of its, you know, the diverse nature of the town. So I'll talk a little bit about the logo that we came up with. I think one of the first things that you'll notice is the hexagon shape, which is, you know, very unique to Cotati. Cotati is one of two cities in the United States that is kind of designed around this shape. And so we thought it made sense to utilize that. We didn't carry a lot over from the current logo, but this was one element that we did. There is a hexagon shape in some versions of the current logo, and I thought it was nice to kind of bring that forward into the new version, because it is one of the things that, you know, people know Cotati for, especially when you consider the slogan that Cotati's used of being the hub of Sonoma County. I feel like that shape does a good job of representing that. And to that point too, having something in the center of it, like in the center of the hub, we thought was a creative way to bring some character to the logo. One of the things that we love about Cotati is how diverse it is, and there's such a broad, you know, range of, you know, the population, interests, the history of the town. And, you know, when we thought and went through many rounds of revision about, you know, just conceptualizing, you know, what is Cotati, one of the things that we kept kind of coming back to was the idea of like the community and the people, and that it felt like Cotati was a city with a heart. And so, so for this sort of first version you're seeing here, this primary logo, we came up with the tagline, "The city with a heart," and we have the heart in the center of the hexagon shape. The typeface itself is a modified but customized typeface specifically for this usage. We thought that we wanted something that was approachable, friendly, that wasn't too serious. So that's why we went with the lowercase c, to try to keep it really more informal and just visually appealing and creative. So if Damien will scroll down, you'll see what we also did was we came up with extensions to this logo where we could utilize different illustrations in the center of the hexagon, paired with different taglines to represent some of the diversity of Cotati. So you can see there a city rooted in agriculture with, you know, roosters, which are very representative of agriculture in Cotati. And for many of you, I'm sure you're familiar with the Chickens of Pete's was kind of an inspiration as well. So we thought that was a fun way. And I think it's worth noting too that the general tone of what we're going for here, and I think you can see from the color palette, like I said, the lowercase c, the illustrations, is we do want to have fun with this. We want people to enjoy it and for each of these versions to reflect something different about Cotati. Community and harmony, which personally was probably my favorite tagline, and it worked really well with the accordion illustration, which of course represents not only the accordion festival in particular, but Cotati's very rich music heritage and history. One that just kind of plays off the shape of the town. There's nothing square about this town. Mother Nature loves it here because those trees were inspired by the trees in La Plaza Park, and of course, the surrounding landscape of Cotati is very picturesque. Where good times happen, again, La Plaza Park is a big feature of Cotati, and so many of these events, from the Kids Day to Oktoberfest and Music Festival, and just about anything that happens in Cotati where a group is gathering seems to happen in La Plaza Park, so it made sense to feature that. And then another example of one about Cotati being the hub of Sonoma County, we thought featuring the SMART train was a fun way to communicate that, and certainly would work well toward emphasizing, tourism and, people, realizing, how Cotati is, so accessible and so interesting. Now, the idea behind these was that this was just a start, and it's more of a concept as we move forward into the future, and we have other ideas for aspects of the city that we want to represent in these simple illustrations. We can continue to create new variations of what you see here. We can even have some fun, coming up with taglines to match the illustrations, but the idea is that it's really a design system and not just a fixed set of graphics. So then, essentially that, what I just all went through lays the groundwork really well for the rest of what you're going to see. And what you're basically going to see is just variations of that. So this is an alternate logo design, and it's not a one or the other. It's going to be part of a larger ecosystem of graphics that we can utilize in different ways at different times. And we'll have a style guide that we will create that will, sort of define and help to regulate the usage of it once it gets outside of our hands, so that that the logos are used in a consistent manner. But this is kind of a fun way to incorporate the graphic into the actual logo type itself. And then you'll see that same concept applied with the other 6 illustrations and colors. Yeah, right here, exactly. And then if we go on, and here's the primary logo with no tagline, just so you can see it, how it looks clean, just the Cotati name and the icons. So the taglines are nice, but the logo can be used on its own, without the taglines. And what's fun about the system is that these logos can be used in context. So depending on what it is that we're promoting, we have this flexible branding system that can be used to promote those different aspects of Cotati. And I think we have a little bit more. And then the alternate logos without the tagline as well. So in its simplest, smallest, purest form. So that's the logo. We had a really great time coming up with these ideas. It took many rounds and many months of work to get to these finalists. We really enjoy working with the city. Everyone we worked with cares so much about this town, and it really showed in how much time and effort we all put into into this product, and we're excited to show it to the city council.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis. And I'll just wrap up, Mayor, by saying that after tonight's, the intent is to start utilizing this in various ways. Probably the first project that we would undertake would be this refreshed street pole banners. So the the banners that would hang on the street light poles along Old Railroad Highway in particular, that have the banner arms but need a decent banner system. So that's probably gonna be the first real visible project that we would see around town.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you very much for the work on that. Thank you, Damien. We obviously have questions from the council, so I'll start off with Councilmember Ford.
Thank you. I love it. I really love the concept and the designs. I had one comment for City Manager Obid that maybe the first task would be to change from the seal on our Facebook page to the new logo. That could be even quicker than getting new banners. And then the other question was for you, Dennis, about the use of the primary versus alternate logos. I really like the alternate with the symbol being the O, and I'm curious about the style guide. Like, what are circumstances where you might use the one you call primary? Like, what drives that? Is it just needing a long horizontal one versus something more square shaped, or?
Yeah, actually, that's a very good point you make, and that certainly is one example of when you might choose one over the other, depending on the available space. I can tell you as a designer, there's nothing more frustrating than having to fit, a square peg into a round hole, so to speak. When you have a logo that you need to integrate with a design system or a layout that doesn't really accommodate the shape of that logo. So it's nice to have what we would just generically call a vertical and horizontal version of the logo. So that's certainly one instance. Generally, the primary, the more official some communication is, or the more, the more widely the logo might be used, the more you would want to use the primary version. And then the alternate versions can be a little bit more for some, more like, event promotion or something like that. That's not going to be a permanent thing. Like, we're promoting, this year's event, and, we can have a little bit more fun and use more of the, the variations of the logo. Where if, let's say one of the, signs around the city that, are going to be more permanent, we'd probably lean toward using the primary version. And truthfully, a lot of that hasn't been determined yet. So, one of the next steps that we would take is, creating that brand guide that would kind of outline some of that usage. And that's one of the steps that we have upcoming, in addition to the banner work, as Damien mentioned. So, yeah, that's a very good question. And I think that pretty much covers it.
Thank you. Councilmember Sparks?
Thank you. I will echo what Councilmember Ford said. I did a very unofficial poll, just sort of showing this around to friends and family, and everybody seemed to prefer the one that's labeled as the alternate with the hexagon contained inside the word. So I would wonder if that, maybe we could think about whether it's worth swapping the alternate and the primary. But I just love the colors, I love the font, I love everything about it. It's great. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. That's very nice feedback.
Vice Mayor Lyman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I concur with the comments I've heard from my colleagues generally. I think this is a really good concept and a great start for us. I like the palette and I like the font work. It's very smart, very clean, and understated. And I think that's a good fit for the community and what we're trying to do here. I think it would work excellently. I like the concept in particular of having this variability to be able to use this as a branding system instead of one specific logo that's popped in the same place every single time. We have a workshop where we can fit different spaces. I see why the primary is shaped the way it is, because typically you're wearing kind of a square space, more a round space you're trying to fit, but at the same time we can make this a vertical, we can do any number of things. And so I think that's really helpful. So certainly for marketing, public information, I think this is good. I would say though, and it's mentioned in the report, that this isn't really to replace our seal, and yet at the same time, we know it is time to redo our seal. And in fact, we've been talking about this since before COVID, but then COVID hit, and well, we all know how that went. But I would like to see some continued and deeper work there. I think that this works perfectly for what it's doing, but as a seal, it's not quite that. So clearly we'll need something, and perhaps some way to tie them together in terms of some general shapes, perhaps colors, certainly, but I think that challenge remains, but this I wholeheartedly can support. So thank you. Good work, Dennis.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I don't see any other council member hands up at this point. So if I understand this correctly, you've got the primary logo with Cotati spelled out and a hexagon with the heart in there as the primary. And then the alternate would be with the hexagon replacing the O.
Right. Correct. And then for each, you have what we're calling the extensions, where we have the different illustrations and color palette.
Okay. So depending upon what we were applying it to, we could use any number of these particular extensions.
Correct.
Okay. Interesting. I think it's nice. It looks clean. It would work. I'm not overly thrilled with the heart in there. I think it's a little, what do they call that? Cheeky. You know, but I like some of the other ones, and then I guess imagine these will be the primary colors to match some of the existing signage we have in the community. So with that, I would look forward to follow this and come back a little bit more as Vice Mayor Lamon indicated. But I think it's a great start.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
I'm not sure of some of the taglines, but we can work on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And with that, I don't see any other council questions, so I will go ahead and open it up for public comment if we have any attendees.
Mayor Moore, we have no attendees.
Thank you. Then we'll go ahead and close public comment. And at this point, it was just a future direction. So I think Damien and Dennis, it looks like you guys have some direction to go with on that.
Yes, yep. So we're going to work on getting this the style guide completed, as Dennis mentioned, and starting to get it out into the community.
Terrific. Okay, thank you so much, Dennis. Thank you, Damien. Okay, so now we will move on to our regular item 12B. Consider adopting a resolution to enact voluntary stage 1 of the city's water shortage contingency plan for 20% water use reduction.
Yes, Mayor, members of the council, Craig Scott, Public Works Director, City Engineer. The region is experiencing an exceptional drought, only receiving about 38% of the normal rainfall this time of the year, and storage is at historically low levels as well. Lake Mendocino, for example, is only at 41% of the target supply curve, and Lake Sonoma is at 58.7%. This is as of May 21st. The state and county have both proclaimed regional drought emergencies, and on May 3rd, the Water Advisory Committee, accounting for the urban water suppliers receiving supply from Sonoma Water, passed a resolution calling for a 20% voluntary conservation. The city is following suit with a proposed resolution enacting voluntary stage 1 of its water shortage contingency plan, also with a 20% reduction. To preserve the water in the reservoir, Sonoma Water has submitted a temporary urgency change petition to the state requesting a reduction in water flows and therefore storage releases in the upper and lower Russian River. The petition is anticipated to be approved but have a requirement for Sonoma Water to reduce its river diversions by 20% or even 25% for the 4-month period from July 1st to November 1st. This requirement will be passed on to its water customers. It is expected there will be monetary penalties imposed by Sonoma Water on its wholesale customers if the 20% reduction goal is not met over the entire 4-month period. The Sonoma Water has indicated that it will not be holding us to individual months for that goal, but over the entire 4 months. So we would have a chance to balance it out, do some catching up if we fall behind. The city recognizes long-term water savings its customers achieve and realize that additional savings is made that much more difficult by our successes so far. Cotati is right on the regional average measurement of gallons per capita per day of 113, and this is well below the 20 by 2020 goal that's set by SB 77 that was enacted in 2009 of 129 gallons per capita per day. So back in 2009, there was the statewide goal of reducing water use by 20% by 2020, and we did very well in surpassing that goal. Our customers are urged to use the city's incentive programs, including cash for grass, toilet and washing machine rebates, and can find these and other water shortage tips on the city's website. Additionally, the city is a member of the Sonoma Marin Saving Water Partnership, which coordinates the public outreach program for long-term programs as well as short-term water shortage conditions. Citizens are encouraged to visit the partnership's webpage for these resources. An option to enacting the voluntary reduction program would be to enact a mandatory program. A mandatory program is enforced and fines would be imposed with recurring infractions. Staff does not recommend a mandatory program as a combination of water reductions and the use of city wells can be used to meet the 20% reduction goal. Staff will be monitoring water use and well pumpage closely to ensure meeting the regional water diversion reduction goal. Financially, the city's water utility is expected to have both increased costs and reduced revenue. It's kind of a double whammy. So staff is anticipating having to use water reserve funds to meet the shortfall. The city's water rates do encourage water savings with the increased tier system and an option as described in the 2017 water and sewer rate study would be to impose a temporary water shortage rate surcharges. The surcharge rates would need to be adopted by council for them to be used, and they're not being recommended at this time by staff. As we move into summer, the message to conserve will continue to ramp up and events will be offered. In addition to the partnership, the city works with Daily Acts, which organizes water efficiency, landscaping, and gray water workshops. Tomorrow, Daily Acts is hosting the Creating Healthy Soils workshop, and information on how to participate is on the city's website. Another event will be taking place at City Hall on June 12th with a drought drive-by event to pick up free water-saving devices. Again, with the adoption of this resolution, the city would be consistent with the region in calling for a voluntary 20% reduction in water use. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to respond to any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. I don't know if we have any questions from the council at this. Councilmember Ford.
I want to be clear, the base for the 20% reduction is just year ago usage?
Yes, I'm sorry I wasn't clear about it. I didn't mention that. It's based on, from a year, from 2020.
So I know since this program is voluntary, this question doesn't necessarily come into play with the current proposal, but as you mentioned, a lot of people have taken steps to reduce usage quite a bit. And if we do go in the direction of mandatory, I hope that there's some floor below which mandatory reductions don't apply or something like that. There's got to be some, minimum to, if we're aiming for 100 gallons per person per day, then households that use 20 gallons per person per day seems to me shouldn't be subject to the 20% reduction requirement, just reflecting the fact that they've already reduced their usage by 80%. So if we ever move towards mandatory, I worry about those sorts of complications. Just basing it on 1 year ago and not on some comparison to average use, we seem to be privileging the people who were massively overusing last year. So that's, yeah, I think that's my only question right now. Thanks.
Thank you, Ben. It doesn't look like we have any further questions from the council at this point. So I will, I do have a question for Mr. Scott. And with the voluntary reduction, if we implement this, do we have a mechanism for a gentle reminder for those we happen to recognize are not adhering to the voluntary?
Yes. When we observe water waste occurring, we have door hangers that we can, put on that property, and it points people in the direction of our water leak alert program, so they can automatically get text messages or emails alerting them of a running toilet or a hose left on or any type of thing like that. So it's both pressure to stop wasting water, and then also pointing them in the direction of this additional resource we have.
A reminder and an educational component.
Yes.
Terrific. Thank you. Councilmember Ford.
Sorry, I remembered one other question. So I'm wondering, Craig, if you have any estimate of how much of our water usage is waste in the form of leakage, either in the city system, or if there are sort of industry guesses as to how much water is toilet leaks or leaking hose bibs and things like that.
Okay, I thought you were going a different direction with that. There's the system losses, which are just water used for fighting fires, and used for flushing our mains and stuff like that. And so, and then, yeah, I do not have an estimate for those. I mean, with Water Smart, we will get, we have put in formulas so that the program can automatically detect that, hey, this is not a program irrigation. It's actually a leak, because in the middle of the night at 1 or 2 a.m., there should be very little, if no, water use. And so if there's water use persistently showing up, then it can say, hey, that triggers a water service leak alert. So that's a number we can certainly calculate and get back to you on.
Well, I was just wondering if that was a sort of putting some money after helping people find and fix those leaks might be a way to help meet our 20%. But if it's not a significant number, that's okay. And I do want to say that leak alert program has been hugely helpful to me. I've received those leaks and found leaking things myself. The other issue was letting people know that they're actually big users of water. I think a lot of people don't have any idea where they might fall on the, I'm a big user, I'm not a big user. And so I wonder if there's any way we could put on water bills, average water use per, say average water use in Cotati is whatever you said, 120 gallons per person per day. If you are a 4-person household, list the numbers depending on household size right on the water bill. If you're a 5-person household, you're using 240 gallons per day. Just to let people know you're way over average.
Councilmember Ford, we do have such a system in place. We have the Water Smart under a contract with us, and they prepare water bills, and the water bills have a water drop with a happy face if you're not using very much water, and then kind of a frowny face if you're above your average. And then it also shows the numbers next to you, how you compare to your the comparable group of customers in your classification. So, and then on top of that, there's a list of water saving tips that are also provided in the bill.
Good, great, thanks.
Mayor, one more thing I just will, I wanted to add to one of Councilmember Ford's questions. Public Works is also working on a project. It's in our CIP to finish the real-time metering on the production side of the distribution system. So we have metering on the consumption side, but we get, we have wells, and we also have connection points to the water agency's water system. And so part of the CIP plan is to finish connecting out real-time meters on the production side. So then it becomes essentially like a mass balance equation, right? You have your inputs and then you have your outputs, and the delta would give you a really good number on your losses, whether it's someone opened up a fire hydrant, flushed a main, or if it's just background leakage at joints. So we are working on that too, to really get a much better view of the system, distribution system.
Thank you, Damian. Vice Mayor Lemon?
I was going to hold off, but we kind of went into some questions and some comments too, so I figured I'd just jump in. It seems like the right time to do it. I just wanted to back up Councilmember Ford's concerns. I think those are valid ones here. We were actually talking about that at home, and we've bumped into this in the past. It is difficult when you have, as he well put it, a 20% overall reduction. You have places that already have voluntarily, just by their nature, kept their usage incredibly low. There's always a little more people can do, but it's hard to eke out another 20% if you're already historically low. So, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is perhaps we start the goals an overall 20% reduction, but that is perhaps a sliding scale based on past usage. In other words, average usage going all the way down to historically low usage. So that percentage of reduction that we're asking for perhaps lowers as we work our way down the schedule. I don't know, but it'll be difficult. I'm sure we will get to the point where we need to have mandatory. I suspect this summer, I'm afraid. And when we get there, we'll have to be realistic about it, because it might be hard for people who have been water smart for a long time to get that extra goal that we want and need. And I will just say, Ben, yeah, we do have water smart. This has worked really good for letting people know what they're doing, but there's a problem. When it tells people they're not doing good, they don't like it. And it's just natural. I don't mean that in a mean way. It's just natural human psychology. When you see a smiling face that says you're doing great, that motivates people and they do well. But when you see the sad face and say you're using more water than all your neighbors, people feel pushed out of the group a little bit, slightly shamed. And I think we've struggled within the company that does this for us, to struggle with trying to find the right motivational tool to nicely say, you could do a better job, come on, go get them. So it'd be interesting to see. I mean, if we get to it, it'd be nice just to have, here's the goal, we need a reduction. Here's where you were last year. Here's where we need to get to. Here's where you are right now. But whatever we do, I do think some thought will have to be given, because I think we will be going to reductions, and a straight reduction across the board. Can work for some of the populace, but you won't get everybody in the lower end. I just don't know if they have that much to give at this point. So.
Thank you. Councilmember Harvey.
Thank you for the presentation, Craig. I think you've covered a lot, and all of the things that I would have thought about. I agree with Vice Mayor Landman. It's the thing that comes up with most people is it's kind of difficult if you've already been saving. I know some of those kind of comparisons, I know they're generic and they mean well, but we don't necessarily have apples and apples. So for instance, because we are more in a rural area, we are compared to homes by size, and it's not necessarily comparable. So every once in a while, you know, it may appear that things are different. The Water Smart program, I have also gotten alerts. We have a little bit of a unique system because we're close to the water tank and we have no pressure. So our water is gravity fed into a holding tank. And so we will get alerts because sometimes it may take days for that gravity because we have no pressure to refill the tank. But I definitely take those seriously, and we immediately start checking everything to make sure everything is good. But they do work. Everything is not always the same. But I really appreciate all the work. A lot of folks have said, what about the people that are already, you know, down to? I mean, I've heard some people say that they are using 10 gallons a day. I find that interesting. I don't know what they're doing, but I think we do have to look at some kind of a scale for those that are really out of the kind of normal bounds of what is generally acceptable use, and kind of help those folks, because I agree with Vice Mayor Landman. It's going to be a little bit harder for those folks to squeak out 20% more. But I think that the program where we are able to look at some of the bigger users and help them bring it in line. The good thing about this program is it's an overall 20%. And we're not doing a mandatory individual 20% at this moment. So I think that should be able to help. And I know that Damien and Craig will do a good job with balancing, you know, our needs from our wells versus Sonoma water. So thank you for that. And I do hope that everyone will take advantage of the things with the Water Saving Partnership and with the water site program. So that's all I have.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Craig, on that. I don't see any further questions from the council, so at this point I will open it up for public comment on there. And for those in the attendees, this is regarding the water issue for public comment.
Christopher Crenmora, go ahead.
Hello, this is Center County Pride, and thank you so much for having us here. We were logged in at 5 to 7, and I think we got stuck in a holding pattern. We were here waiting for the proclamation, so I'm very, very sorry if we missed it, but we were stuck on the closed session page and never got let in. I think we were waiting for the closed session to end, but I think it ended before us realizing it.
Yeah.
That's all.
Well, and we're certainly welcome to listen to any input you might have or comments that you might have. We do have a section of the agenda which is a non-action item comment section, so you're certainly welcome to come back and make some comments on that. We'd be happy if you want to participate in that. Right now we're talking about voluntary water reduction in light of our upcoming current drought. So, thank you. Anyone else on public comment?
That will end public comment.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. We'll be looking forward to that voluntary reduction wherever we can get it. Thank you, Mr. Scott. And now we move on to...
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I think we need to make a motion. And having said that, I'd like to move that we adopt a resolution enacting the voluntary stage 1 of the water shortage contingency plan, requesting our customers to reduce their water use by 20%.
I would second that motion. This is Councilmember Harvey.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call?
Councilmember Harvey.
Yes.
Councilmember Sparks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Landman,
Yes.
Mayor Moore.
Yes, thank you very much. Now we will move on to 12C.
Mayor Moore, may I ask for an indulgence? The attendees who are here were here for the proclamation. Because it was a technical glitch, may I ask that we reopen public comment on the proclamation at this point so we can hear them rather than making them wait until all the other agenda items are done?
Yeah, I didn't think it was going to be that much further down the agenda since
Okay.
it's just a couple of items, but we can certainly open it up for public comment on the previous proclamation.
Thanks.
Christopher Crenmore, go ahead.
Well, first of all, we'd like to thank you guys for doing the proclamation because it's a big step for the city of Cotati as well as the surrounding areas to announce that it is Pride Month. I know that our organization for years since the 80s have been trying to get proclamations and be aware of the diversity in our county. And we like the fact that the city of Cotati is joining us to declare Pride Month and the diversity in our county. Thank you.
It's a very big deal. We're very, very appreciative. It's a long journey, especially for the pioneers that started in the 70s, 80s, taking a proclamation, and we're very, very grateful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to try this again. No hands up. Okay. Item 12C, update on city council rules. Mr. Obed, are you presenting on this one?
Yes, I am. I'll present tonight. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So chapter 2.04 of the Cotati Municipal Code, in accordance with a corresponding government code section, allows the city council to adopt rules governing meeting procedure. And our existing rules, the current version, they were adopted in July of 2017. And you've seen them on shown on agendas for forever now. It's 2017-41 is the resolution that adopted that. Based on some council feedback at a prior meeting, what's proposed tonight is a couple, I think, relatively straightforward changes to the meeting rules. The first is moving the regular meeting start time from 7 p.m. to 6 p.m. And the intent is to obviously start the meeting earlier and hopefully allow more time for the public to engage in council items before it goes too late in the evening. And also the other small change was there was in the current rules, there is a vote by motion to extend the meeting when you get to 10 o'clock. Rather than leaving it there, the proposed changes moves that to 11. So the thinking there is that if the meeting were to start at 6, by 11 p.m., you've already been meeting for 5 hours, and it's fairly late, and most of the public will have probably gone home at that point, and it's a good, I think the perspective is it could be a good check-in point to decide if we want to continue the meeting, because there might be some time-critical items still remaining that we need to finish up, or if some of these items should be deferred to a future meeting. And then the hard stop is still in the rules at midnight, so all meetings would end at midnight regardless. And that's it in a nutshell, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Obed. Who would like to start off this conversation? Councilmember Sparks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And yet, even though it may not be public information, I know that you are the youngest one here.
Well, thank you. I will start off the conversation since I was the one who sort of brought this up. In looking at the start time for other meetings within Sonoma County, we were the only city starting at 7. Everyone else was starting earlier. I can't remember exactly, I think there was 1 or 2 other cities that started at 6:30. and everyone else started at 6 or before. And, you know, having gone almost right up to midnight several times, I thought that it would be really good for public participation if we were finishing up a little earlier. So that was, I'm strongly in favor of starting at 6 o'clock.
Thank you. And any thoughts on moving the procedural item, voting to continue from 10 p.m. to 11? Councilmember Sparks?
I'm okay with that. I think that it's a good idea because the 10 o'clock vote has sort of gotten to be sort of pro forma, and moving it to 11 would maybe make it a more thoughtful moment to really assess whether we absolutely need to go on or could stop and put some of those items off for later. So I see benefits to keeping it at 10 and benefits to keep moving it to 11. So I'm really okay with either.
Thanks. Vice Mayor Lehman?
This always works better if we unmute. All right. Yeah, I fully agree on moving the check-in, the 10 p.m. check-in. I think that was a great idea to come forward to have that check-in. I think in practice that we found the last few years that 10 o'clock was perhaps just a little early. And instead of being a thoughtful time to perhaps decide if we need to place some things back on the shelf to a later date, what happens is it just interrupts a meeting that's already going a little long and busy. So I really support going to 11. That makes a lot more sense. I will say honestly, on the other piece, I've gone back and forth. As I shared with Councilmember Sparks when she first suggested that, oh gosh, we've always done it differently. I don't know if I like that. And then later that night, at about midnight or so, as we were still in the middle of a meeting, I thought it was a pretty good idea to be done about an hour earlier if it was possible. So with that in mind, I have thought about it though, and the one thing that continues to wear on me and worry me a little bit though, I agree the whole concept of this is to allow citizen participation. There's a reason we have our meetings in the evening when it would have been a lot easier, more convenient for many, certainly staff, to do them in the afternoon or the morning, and that's to allow working families to attend and to participate. Now, the problem for us is, as I look at this, for working families, is there really enough time, considering many of them will work to 5:30, to deal with daycare, go to a store, get a meal, get home, perhaps prepare a meal, and then whether it's a drive, hopefully, and a future date to a meeting, or even hop on a Zoom before 6 p.m. That seems a little tight to me. It may be just as difficult as the occasional late meeting. I do note that many other cities, the larger cities, do start earlier, but they consistently do have much longer meetings. We fortunately, as a rule, don't. I feel sorry for our newest members. If you were to only judge by the last few months, you think we do this all the time, but I can tell you historically, at least over the last decade, unless something changes in the next year or so, that's the exception rather than the rule. So I don't know if I'm convinced personally to vote for starting at 6 because I think it cuts more people out than it helps. I would suggest maybe a median of 6:30. You get a little of both. You shave some time off the end, but you actually give people, you make sure there's time for them to show up, and perhaps that encourages them more to show up. I could vote for that. I don't think I'd vote for starting at 6, but either way it goes, I'm sure it'll be fine. It's certainly not something I feel terribly strongly about, but I think that's where I'd go with it tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Ford?
First let me ask you, Mayor Moore, I just realized I was about to launch into opinions and conversation. Do you want to take public comment before we do that, and should I just hold questions?
I would be glad to, but I don't even see any attendees there.
Oh, good point. Okay, thank you. So I think the notion of 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 workday as a standard is not really true anymore. And I think the number of people who, so I just don't think we have enough information to be able to say there's a lot of people who could make it at 6:30 or 7 and can't make it at 6. The other point about the 6 o'clock start is we rarely get to the regular agenda before half an hour into the meeting. And so even if the meeting starts at 6, you know, the business that most people want to comment on isn't happening until 6:30. So I would support starting at 6:30. I think the post 10 o'clock parts of the meeting are much more a problem for public participation than the 6 to 6:30 part of the meeting.
Thank you. Councilmember Harvey.
Yes, I would concur with Vice Mayor Landman. It is unfortunate that over the last few months that we have had some pretty long meetings, because what is interesting is for a very long time we were being accused of not being here long enough. So there were plenty of meetings where we were, you know, out of here before 8 o'clock. It just happens that I don't know why all of a sudden we've had some really long ones. I do worry a little bit about people being able to get everything that they need to get done to be available at 6. I do know that when we have had some of our meetings, we have seen people straggle in even when the meetings are at 7, because they kind of had to get, you know, kids settled, or, you know, families food, or whatever. So I worry about that a little bit. So I do like, you know, kind of splitting the difference a little bit, and would, you know, consider the 6:30 time. And I do like the 11 p.m. For the check back in again. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. I remember historically we had these at 7 because we did have some council members that were commuting. And so they were coming up from different areas, and it was difficult for them to get here at 6, even when we had sometimes closed sessions before our 7 o'clock meeting in order to not go past midnight. And I would kind of concur with Councilmember Ford on the future. Work is changing drastically, and we have a significant number of people now that are working from home. And so I don't think you're going to have as much of a concern regarding commute. I think you could still have some issues regarding, you know, preparing meals, etc., for some folks after their work day. But I think with a hybrid meeting that we're hoping to go to, where we would have people in person and then people able to virtually participate in the meeting, it may not be as much of a concern as previously. So I kind of like the idea of potentially going to 6 and seeing how it works, and if it doesn't work and it's too difficult for folks, you know, it can always be changed. So that's kind of where I'm leaning on that. And I think the 11 o'clock is fine on the notification. If we're getting up to that point, it's probably a good time to take a question on whether we need to continue this or try to finish it up. So with that, I will open it up for public comment.
Mayor Moore, there are no attendees.
Thank you. We should have started at 6. No, just kidding. I think we've heard. If you guys are open to a motion.
I'd be happy to make a motion. We'll see if it flies. We might as well just do these as 2. I thought it might be smarter to separate them. But I'll move that we move the consideration of new hearing items past 10 to 11 p.m. And I'd also like to move that we change the regular starting time from 7 to 6:30, and we'll see if that passes.
I would second that motion.
So we have a motion and a second. Councilmember Sparks, did you have a comment before we vote on that motion?
A question that if we want to consider 6 o'clock as well, should I make an amendment and see if that flies? Or what's the proper way to consider both things?
My understanding is if you have a motion on the floor, you can have another amendment to that motion.
Okay.
And then you can have a third amendment, but then you would have to vote conversely on the third and then the second and back to the original if that were the case. If that's correct, Mr. Rubin or Mr. Walker?
Yeah, I think it is. It seems like a simple, I think the motion was, the staff recommendation was for 6 p.m. and the motion is for 6:30. So I think the council at this point could vote on the 6:30 motion, and if it failed, take up the motion on 6 o'clock. So Councilmember Sparks, if you're not in favor of 6:30, you could vote no on the present motion, or you could try to amend the motion as well.
Okay.
Either way, I think you're going to. I mean, if your substitute motion or amended motion passes, it will require 3 votes.
Either way.
Okay, so right now we have a motion and a second. Any further comment on that? Councilmember Ford.
Just a quick question. So there's 2 motions. I mean, I think Vice Mayor Lyman made 2 motions, but maybe he'll be
I
able
actually
to
combined them in one motion, Ben, because I thought I didn't want to separate the 2 items. I could if you'd like, but I figure, I know the 11 o'clock one's going to pass regardless of whether we do this in 1 motion or 2 motions. So I thought it would just be time saving not to do it.
Got it. Sorry about that. Okay.
No problem.
Okay, so no further discussion on that motion. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Burgess, could we have a roll call on it?
Councilmember Harvey.
Yes.
Councilmember Sparks.
No.
Councilmember Ford.
No.
Vice Mayor Landman.
Yes.
Mayor Moore.
No. So that motion is defeated, 3-2. Do we have any other motions?
Yes, I'd like to move a resolution to the City Council updating City Council rules as included in our packet, which would change the meeting time to 6 o'clock and the vote on continuation to 11 p.m.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. Ms. Burgess, or any further comment, any further discussion on that motion? Okay, Ms. Burgess, could we have a vote on that?
Councilmember Harvey.
Roll call.
Yes.
Councilmember Sparks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Landman.
Yes.
Mayor Moore.
I'm so dying to say no, but yes is fine. So we have a 5-0 vote on that. Thank you very much. That resolves that particular issue. And we will now go on to City Manager's report.
Mayor?
Yes.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Certainly.
When would that start?
I believe after 30 days.
It's a resolution, so it would start effective the next meeting.
Next meeting, okay.
All right.
Yep. Will you be able to attend that at 6?
Hope so.
Thank you. Mr. Obiad, it's all yours.
All right, so just an emergency update. Quick COVID thing and then a couple other things that might be of interest. So as you know, ages 12 and over are eligible for vaccines, and so that seems to be the primary, or a lot of the push these days is to get the 12 to 16 ages vaccinated. Currently in the over 16 category, 74% of Sonoma County adults are fully or partially vaccinated, and 60% are fully vaccinated as of today. We continue to be in the orange tier with a case rate of 2.2 per 100,000, and you need to be less than 2 to get to the yellow tier, which may just be academic soon enough come June 15th when the color tier system is slated to go away. Sonoma County Libraries opened up this Monday with limited daily hours, so that's a change. And then also June 5th, the county is beginning its evacuation exercises, starting with the Fitch Mountain area up by Healdsburg. So they're going to be starting to do some evacuation drills. We, and as a side note, Cotati and Roanoke Park are also coordinating on some evacuation drills that we don't have a date on yet, but they will be later this summer. And then just a couple reminders about the rental and utility payment assistance that's available, and applications are available in the city through the city website. You can find the link on where the county's application is. And then also, well, I pretty much wrapped up the emergency response stuff. So with Public Works, given the actions tonight, the community center roofing project should be underway in mid-June and be complete by mid-September. So that's exciting. They finally get that done before the rainy season this year. Also, the paving preservation project that was approved tonight should get underway in mid-June and be completed by mid-August. And then on the topic of street paving, the west side line is progressing, and we hope to bid the project in August, and if everything goes as planned, have construction in October. Just a little nugget on police training, which I thought was interesting and worth sharing, is that our department recently participated in a 2-day de-escalation 16-hour course. It's a post-certified course, and there were approximately 40 students in the class. Cotati PD was the only agency that sent dispatchers, 3 of them, and the instructors were impressed that we'd sent dispatchers, and I guess commented that all dispatchers should attend. And we are in the process of signing up all of our dispatchers and officers and command staff to also attend the de-escalation training. And then in the world of recreation, this past Friday, we hosted Energizer Station for the 2021 Bay Area Bike Tour Ever Day at La Plaza Park. And I was actually surprised to learn that it sounds like Cotati, Sebastopol, and Santa Rosa were the only places where these official Energizer stations were. So I'm proud that we were able to participate in that. And we had about 30 cyclists throughout the morning who were all very excited for a bag of goodies and some morning refreshments. And we look forward to continuing to partner with the Bike Coalition and Yuba Bikes based here in Cotati for future events. And thanks for all the volunteers that helped out at the Energizer Station. And then we're also currently sold out for about half of our camp, Cotati Summer Camp, and we're getting more signups daily. So we're hosting 9 weeks of in-person camp this summer, and also bringing back our CIP, our Counselor and Training Program. It allows teens that are too old for camp but too young to work at camp to get hands-on training for a future as a camp counselor, as well as plenty of other future job training. We'll also have multiple children's theater camps this summer for ages 4 to 18 and gymnastics camps for ages 4 to 8. And we recommend registering for these camps. Often fill up quickly. Also coming back this summer is our recurring free summer lunch program for all children 18 and under. And we partner with the Redwood Empire Food Bank on this program, where they provide the food and we provide the staff to distribute lunches after schools are out, and particularly for kids that are in school lunch programs. The summer can be a long time, so this program is intended to continue essentially the school lunch program through the summer between school sessions. And the lunch is available at no cost to any child, Monday through Friday, beginning June 7th. We're going to have it here at the community center between 12 and 12:30. There is no paperwork to complete. You can just show up, no RSVP or registration required. And you do not have to be a Cotati resident or a camp participant for the lunch program. And then we're also excited to see the weekly farmers market coming back starting next week on Wednesday, June 2nd. And this will continue on Wednesday evenings throughout the summer until the end of September. And 2 more things. June 4th, we have our drive-in movie coming back showing Little Rascals, and you can sign up for your vehicle online. And then the last is June 19th, we'll be hosting a community yard sale, again in the Cotati room. We'll be accepting yard sale item donations on June 17th and 18th. And there will be more details available for these events on our social media and website soon. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Obid. I don't see any hands raised or any questions for you on that city manager's report. I do have a couple of quick questions. Regarding the summer camp program through the recreation, are we looking at anything to potentially expand that to allow for more participants, or are we limited with our physical capacity?
We have expanded it significantly from where it was in the middle of COVID, but there are still, as we speak today, there are still some restrictions. And so, you know, the expansion capability does hinge on both the staffing to run the camps, to maintain the right staff to student ratio, but also making sure that it's a safe environment for the children.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. We don't have any further questions on that. Now we can move on to public comment on non-action agenda items.
We
Steve,
actually
I wasn't that
have
far.
city council member reports.
Oh, my apologies. Who would like to initiate the city council members? Councilmember Harvey.
Hey, I just really have one item to report tonight, and it's sort of with sadness that Renewable Sonoma has ended its negotiations for an organics processing facility with Zero Waste Sonoma. They tried and tried, but they were unable to be able to secure sufficient investment to be able to achieve that. So they have broken off negotiations with Zero Waste Sonoma, as well as with the city of Santa Rosa for the use of the land at the Laguna. So we will be circling back to look to see what our options are. So while that's unfortunate, one of the things that was done was we were able to procure some longer ability to outhaul those organic materials. So we will be doing that for a bit longer than we thought. So sad, but we'll move forward and hopefully we can find another vendor. That is all.
Thank you, Councilmember Harvey. Councilmember Sparks?
Thank you. I wanted to talk about my work on the Health Action Committee. I have learned that a tiny, tiny sliver of Cotati is part of the Petaluma Health District, which is a Health Action chapter. It's a very small part of Cotati on the west side, north of 116. But nevertheless, a little piece of us is part of that Health Action chapter. So I was attending the Community Health Initiative of the Petaluma area, CHIPA, Mental Health and Substance Abuse Work Group. And they presented a really interesting survey that was done by a group called Youth Truth that did a just absolutely extensive survey of thousands and thousands of students, parents, and employees throughout our school districts in Sonoma County. They asked us to consider a couple questions during this presentation of the data that they got back, one of which was, in what ways might this data inform changes that you or your organization could make to strengthen your community? So I've really been thinking a lot about that, and I wanted to just share some of the statistics that were really the most surprising to me. And one of them was that they asked high school students, how much do they feel that they belong in their community? And through COVID, it has dropped to about 34% of high school students say that they have a sense of belonging within their community, which is way lower than the national average. And even with COVID, there was a question about how students were able to participate in online learning and what the barriers were to them to being learning effectively in an online environment. And the most common answer, a lot of people thought it would be problems with internet access or devices or things like that, but really the most common answer was feelings of stress, depression, or anxiety were preventing people from being able to learn in an online environment. And since it is Pride Month, I wanted to point out one of the most troubling statistics that I learned in that, which was that the breakdown of how much stress, anxiety, and depression were affecting students, whether they were straight or gay, was really a pronounced difference. So straight students reported 64% of the high school straight students said that feelings of stress, depression, or anxiety were preventing them from learning effectively, but 90% of gay students said that. So I was just really shocked by that disparity, and 82% of gay middle school students said that feelings of stress, depression, and anxiety were the largest barrier to their being able to learn. So that's a major disparity that exists in our community, and I'm really thinking hard about what we can do about that. Another area of disproportionate impact was internet access among students who were English language learners. 37% of them cited lack of internet access as one of the biggest barriers to being able to learn effectively, versus non-English language learners, it was a little lower at 28%, so there's a little bit of an equity gap there with internet access. And probably the most troubling thing that I heard that was really heartbreaking was that they surveyed students about whether the fires had significantly impacted them in the last few years, and whether COVID had significantly impacted them or their families in the last few years. And those who said that the fires had significantly impacted them, 19% of those students said they had seriously considered suicide in the last 12 months. And I was just really heartbroken to learn that number. So I'm going to continue to work on this and within the education committee, and I hope to report back to you. But if you want to take a look at that Youth Truth survey, I can send out a link. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ford.
So the Russian River Watershed Association Board is meeting this Thursday. So Greg, if there's anything I need to know from the technical working group, let me know. It's probably not, but so that's coming up this Thursday. And on City Manager Obid's report, I bike to all of the Energizer stations on the bike to wherever day. And while Cotati station was great, we got to work on our treats if we want to keep up with the community market station in Sebastopol. So let's pick it up next year. Thanks. Oh, and I need to mention that Councilmember Sparks was one of the volunteers at the Cotati station, so thank you for being there.
We didn't recognize each other with our masks at first.
Thank you so much. The only thing I have to report out is I guess we will be having our Mayors and Council Members Association meeting on June 10th, I believe it is. We've had some change, I think, on the speaker, so we haven't confirmed who we're going to have on that presentation, but that'll be open to all mayors and council members, and it will be in a Zoom format. We may go back to meeting weekly with just the mayors, now that there's been some changes in some of the surrounding communities on the leadership there, but we haven't gotten the official determination on that yet, as Mr. Bacher is well aware.
Do you know the time on the 10th?
It is, we have the board meeting at 6 and then the general meeting at 7.
Thanks.
Yeah. And I think that's all I have to report out at this time. We are still doing our merger with Remif and Parsac to create that CIRA entity. There are some meetings coming up in August that are going to be pretty good size with the number of participants on that, so that'll be interesting. So we'll keep you posted on how that's going. And I don't have anything else to report out on that. And it looks like we don't have any further reports on that. So with that in mind, now we will go to public comment on that non-action agenda items with our non-attendees.
That is correct. There will be no public comment.
Thank you. Do we have any information received after the agenda was posted?
Nothing further?
And we will now go into our closed session and conference with real property negotiators. Property APN 144320026, agency negotiator, Mr. Obid, city manager, and negotiating parties, David McDonald, city of Cotati, negotiation price and terms of payment, real estate, I'm assuming. And then conference with legal counsel, existing litigation. Name of the case is Shoneman versus City of Cotati. It is 8:58. We will resume closed session at 9:05. And I imagine that we have the link in our email for that closed session, or are we going to do a breakout on that?
It's blinking on your
Separate
calendar.
thing. Okay. Okay, I will keep this open and close my video and mute and open up that new link for closed session. And we'll be there at 9:05.
Yes, I believe it'll force you to leave this meeting and then rejoin it. Lauren will keep this meeting open so we can rejoin after closed session.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have everybody in here? I think so. Okay, we are done with closed session, and we have nothing to report out on that. That would be the end of our meeting, and we will adjourn for now at 9:46 p.m. Thank you all very much. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. I'm out of town, so I won't be able to attend the flag ceremony, but if you guys are available, that'd be great.
Gonna be there, no problem.
All right.
Thanks all.
Had it in the day planner. That was a good offer.
You guys take care.
Thank you.
Good night.